Have you ever seen old photos of German officers from the 1800s or early 1900s with scars across their cheeks? These weren't random injuries or battle wounds, they were marks of Mensur, a unique form of German academic fencing. But unlike traditional duels, Mensur wasn't about defeating an opponent or proving swordsmanship. Instead, it was a test of courage, discipline, and endurance. Participants stood face-to-face at arm's length, swinging at each other with razor-sharp blades, while completely forbidden to dodge, flinch, or step back. The scars they received, called Schmiss, were considered badges of honor, proof of a man's strength and resilience. Some even believed these scars made men look more distinguished, respectable, and even more desirable as husbands. German leader Otto von Bismarck saw them as a sign of bravery, believing a man's courage could be judged by the number of scars on his face. Mensur was mainly practiced by university students in Germany and Austria from the 16th century through the early 20th century. These students belonged to exclusive fraternities called Chor, or Burschenschaften, which were made up of wealthy and noble young men. Being part of these organizations opened doors to high-ranking government, military, and business positions later in life. But membership came with traditions, one of the most famous being Mensur. Fighters used specialized swords called Schläger, which were designed specifically to cut rather than stab. While some protective gear was worn, such as a metal guard over the eyes and nose, the cheeks and forehead were intentionally left exposed to ensure the possibility of receiving a scar. The duels were carefully controlled, overseen by a referee, fellow fraternity members, and even a doctor, who was on hand to treat wounds immediately. The goal wasn't to win or defeat an opponent, but to stand firm and take a hit without fear. As long as a fighter remained composed while being cut, he earned respect, even if he received more wounds than his opponent. The roots of Mensur go back to 16th century Germany, when university students were legally allowed to carry swords for self-defense. This led to frequent duels, which were initially fought without rules and sometimes resulted in serious injuries or death. By the 17th century, more structured regulations were introduced to reduce fatalities, and these fights evolved into a ritualized sport. In the 19th century, Mensur reached its peak, becoming a highly respected tradition, especially during peacetime. Military officers saw it as a way to prove their courage without going to war. The scars became so desirable that some students who couldn't participate deliberately cut their own faces with razors just to fake having a Mensur wound. However, not everyone supported Mensur. In the 1930s, the Nazi Party banned the practice, not because they disliked the duels, but because they despised the elite student fraternities that represented the old aristocracy. Despite this, Mensur continued in secret. After World War II, the Allied forces temporarily prohibited it, seeing it as too closely linked to Germany's military traditions. But by the 1950s, Mensur returned, this time with significant safety improvements. Today, Mensur is still practiced, but it is much safer than before. The emphasis is now on tradition and discipline rather than scars, with strict rules to prevent serious injuries. Though the brutal duels of the past may be gone, the tradition remains one of the strangest and most intense tests of character in European history. It wasn't about winning, it was about proving you could take a hit and remain standing. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And remember, if you ever find yourself in a Mensur duel, wear your nose armor. See you in the next one.